Imagine standing on the edge of like a vast pitch black ocean. You've got a boat.
Right.
The water is just terrifyingly calm, but you aren't just getting in and sailing away immediately. Instead, you're, looking at the hull of the boat and then looking back over your shoulder at the shore.
Yeah, taking it all in.
Exactly. You're looking at the cities you've spent decades helping to build, the metaphorical fields you've cultivated, all those boardroom battles you've fought.
The monuments to your own ambition, really.
Yes, all the monuments you've erected. And standing there on the wet sand, you feel this profound, agonizing tension.
Oh, absolutely.
It's this friction between that very human biological drive to shape the world, to like leave a permanent mark, and the terrifying realization that eventually you just have to let go of the oars.
Yeah.
That ultimately the most profound thing you can do is just let the dark water take you.
And it is a terrifying realization. I mean,
Yeah.
it completely violates the core operating system of modern life.
You're right.
We spend our entire lives, like from kindergarten all the way through retirement, just being conditioned to believe that our value is inextricably linked to our output.
Which is exhausting.
It's so exhausting. Our worth is our control.
Yeah.
Our success is defined by our ability to grip the steering wheel of the ship until our knuckles literally turn white.
Yeah, just white knuckling through life.
Exactly. So to suggest that the ultimate goal of a truly meaningful life is actually the deliberate surrender of that control, I mean, that goes against the grain of almost everything we are taught about productivity and success, and honestly, even survival.
And that terrifying realization, that tension between the endless hustle and the sudden drop into stillness, that's exactly why we are tearing into a really specific piece of literature today.
It's a fantastic text.
It really is. So for you listening, we're exploring a reimagined English translation of a classical Chinese poem called Night Voyage.
Along with some incredibly probing commentary and philosophical notes from the author.
Right, right. And look, we aren't doing a standard literary analysis today. This isn't high school English class.
Definitely not.
We're looking at this because underneath all the ancient imagery, this text is essentially an architectural blueprint for solving a very modern problem.
The crushing weight of perpetual burnout.
Yes, it charts the necessary trajectory of a well-lived life. It basically argues that you cannot just run away to the woods to find peace.
Right.
You actually have to earn your serenity through profound, exhausting engagement with the world first.
Which is such a crucial distinction to make right away, I think.
Oh, totally.
Because it is incredibly easy and honestly incredibly common to read ancient Eastern poetry about nature and just completely misinterpret it as an endorsement of pure escapism.
Yeah, like, I'm going to drop out of society.
Exactly. We read about monks in the mountains and think the message is, quit your job, ignore your mortgage, and go stare at a tree.
Which sounds great on a Monday morning, but
Right. But the commentary surrounding Night Voyage makes a much more complex and frankly much more demanding psychological argument.
how so?
Well, it suggests that a life intensely, almost aggressively engaged with the material world is actually the biological and spiritual prerequisite for arriving at genuine inner freedom.
Wow. So you have to go through the fire.
Yeah, you cannot transcend a world you haven't first conquered.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the poem breaks this whole journey down into 4 distinct psychological stages, and I really want to start at the absolute foundation.
The starting line.
Exactly, the prologue to ambition. So the text opens with these 2 lines. It says, "With a far-seeing heart, I contemplate all things, and in stillness nurture strength through passing years."
Such a beautiful opening.
It is, but okay, a far-seeing heart sounds great on paper. In a practical sense, though, what is the actual psychological mechanism here?
That's a great question.
Because, when I hear far-seeing, my modern brain instantly thinks of rapid data acquisition.
Oh.
Yeah, like, I think of reading 100 news articles, analyzing the trends, trying to predict the stock market or the next big tech wave.
Right, trying to see the future by consuming data.
Exactly. But I get the sense that's the exact opposite of what the author actually means.
This is the absolute exact opposite. I mean, equating a far-seeing heart with rapid data acquisition is really just a symptom of an overactive, hyperstimulated mind.
Guilty as charged.
Well, we all are, right? In cognitive psychology, there's this concept of cognitive load. When you are constantly acquiring data, your brain is just in a state of continuous reaction.
You're just putting out fires.
Exactly. You are essentially living in the amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for immediate instinctual responses to stimuli. fight or flight.
So not very far-seeing at all.
No, not at all. A far-seeing heart requires moving completely out of that reactive state. It implies a process of observation that isn't about gathering more information, but about pattern recognition.
Ah,
It's about understanding the deep underlying rhythms of the world, like the slow-moving tectonic shifts of human behavior and nature, rather than obsessing over the daily weather.
that makes a lot of sense.
And you just cannot perceive those slow rhythms if your mind is moving at a frantic pace.
So it's basically the difference between reacting to a symptom and diagnosing the actual disease.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Like if you are just seeing with your eyes in that hyper-reactive state, you encounter a problem at work, right, or in a relationship,
Yeah.
and you immediately scramble to fix it.
You send off an angry text?
Right. You fire off an email at 11 p.m., you implement a quick Band-Aid solution.
Yeah.
But if you are operating with a far-seeing heart, you just sit with the problem.
You observe the friction.
Yeah. You ask why the system produced that problem in the first place before you ever even lift a finger to intervene.
Precisely. And, that requires the second half of that opening thought. And in stillness nurtures strength through passing years.
Passing years, that's the kicker.
It really is. This is the stage of observation and self-cultivation. And notice the timeline there. It does not say, in stillness nurture strength over a weekend mindfulness retreat.
Right. Or a 10-minute meditation app.
Exactly. It says passing years.
I have to admit, this is where my own modern conditioning just starts screaming at me.
Oh, I'm sure it does.
Because stillness through passing years. I immediately think, like, well, if I sit still for years, I'm going to get completely left behind.
The FOMO sets in.
Hardcore FOMO. My peers are getting promoted, they're starting companies, they're building out their networks. If I'm sitting in stillness, I am losing the race. Isn't this just a recipe for totally becoming irrelevant?
Well, that anxiety you're feeling,
Yeah.
that is exactly why this first stage is so incredibly difficult.
Okay.
And it's why it requires so much strength to actually endure. I mean, we live in an era of the engine operating at the red line.
Constant max speed.
Right. Hustle culture tells us that the engine must always be revving at maximum RPMs, producing immediate visible power.
Yeah, if you aren't producing, you aren't valuable.
But think about the actual mechanics of a physical engine. Before you can ever introduce the spark in the fuel, before you can ever hit that red line, you have to cast the engine block.
Oh, wow. Oh,
You have to pour molten metal into a mold and let it slowly, quietly cool and harden over time.
and if you don't,
If you don't allow for that slow cooling, that stillness, the metal is brittle. The moment you introduce the explosive force of ambition, the engine block just cracks.
oh, that is such a good analogy. So the stillness isn't an absence of action at all.
Not at all.
It's the invisible structural engineering of the self.
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the notes on the poem actually draw a direct parallel here to the Stoic philosophy of inner mastery.
Oh, like Marcus Aurelius and those guys.
Yeah, exactly. Think of Epictetus or Marcus Aurelius. Stoicism is so often misunderstood today as just like repressing your emotions.
Right, just having a stiff upper lip.
But true Stoicism is about profound, calculated preparation. It is the rigorous mapping of your own internal landscape.
Building the foundation.
Yes, the Stoics argued that before you can even begin to navigate the chaos of the external world, the political arenas, volatile markets, other people's unpredictable behavior, you must first build an impenetrable inner citadel.
Because, if you don't understand your own triggers, your own ego, your own weak points, the world is just going to play you like a fiddle.
It absolutely will. You must spend years observing your own mind. You just watch how your ego reacts to a slight. You watch how your ambition flares up when you see someone else succeed on social media.
But you don't act on it.
No, you don't necessarily act on those feelings. You just map them. You are calibrating your internal instruments. This is what it means to nurture strength. You are storing up potential energy.
You know what that makes me think of?
With
That
that?
makes me think of, like, a deep space probe.
Oh, I like where this is going.
So before a probe heads out into the unknown darkness of the outer solar system, it doesn't just fire its main thrusters immediately and burn all its fuel to get away from Earth.
Right, that would be a disaster.
Yeah, it would run out of gas in like 2 days. Instead, it spends years doing this silent, intricate math. It orbits a massive planet like Jupiter, using the gravitational pull to quietly, invisibly build up immense velocity.
Yes.
It looks like it's just going in circles, right? Maybe even looks like it's going the wrong way, but it's gathering a massive gravitational assist. The stillness, the observation, is what provides the actual velocity for the eventual launch.
That is a phenomenal mechanical analogy. The gravitational assist is the perfect way to visualize nurturing strength.
It really reframes the whole idea of waiting.
It does, but it also raises a deeply uncomfortable question for you, the listener, right now.
Oh, yeah.
Are you allowing yourself the silent orbits required to build that velocity? Or are you constantly firing your thrusters the second you get an idea, burning your fuel prematurely just because you are terrified of looking inactive?
Oof, that is the ultimate trap. Because if you bypass this stage, if you skip that deep psychological engineering of the far-seeing heart, you might launch yourself into the world, and hey, you might even achieve some quick wins.
Sure, early success happens all the time.
Right, but you lack the structural integrity to handle the pressure of sustained greatness. When the inevitable crises hit, your engine block cracks.
Exactly.
But let's say you do it right. You actually endure the anxiety of the stillness, you do the slow work, your engine block is perfectly cast, your gravitational assist is locked in and ready.
You're primed.
What happens when that immense, cultivated internal energy finally makes contact with the external world?
Well, that explosive point of contact brings us to the second stage of the journey. The commentary titles this Vision and Accomplishment.
Okay, so this is where we actually do the thing.
Yes, and the poem describes it like this. Hills and valleys hidden deep within my breast unfold new realms. My hand plays upon heaven and earth.
Okay, wait, let's stop right there. Hills and valleys hidden deep within my breast. I am fascinated by that phrase.
It's very evocative.
It really is, because it completely redefines how we usually think about the human mind. We usually treat the mind as like a storage drive, just a flat space where we dump facts and passwords and memories.
A very utilitarian view.
Exactly. But this paints the internal world as a complex, rugged topography. It suggests that those years of silent observation have literally terraformed the speaker's soul.
I love that word, terraform.
Yeah. They now have deep canyons of empathy, high peaks of ambition, wide plains of patience.
And notice the direction of the action in the poem. Those internal hills and valleys are now unfolding into new realms.
They're spilling out.
Exactly. The inner architecture is manifesting in the physical world. This is the stage of profound human agency.
So the gravitational assist is launching.
Yes. All that quiet observation, all that potential energy is finally converting into kinetic energy. You are no longer just observing the world. You are actively shaping reality based on your internal blueprint.
Okay, but I'm going to push back hard here, because this is where the text gets incredibly provocative, I think.
For it.
Look at the next phrase. My hand plays upon heaven and earth. Let's be totally honest. Doesn't that sound incredibly arrogant?
It definitely can read that way, yeah.
Like, it sounds like pure hubris. It sounds like a Silicon Valley tech bro claiming he's going to disrupt the universe, or some CEO who genuinely believes they are a god moving chess pieces around the globe.
A master of the universe complex.
Exactly. How do we distinguish between this stage of actual accomplishment and just straight up megalomania?
It's a vital pushback. Because the line between profound agency and destructive hubris is razor thin.
Very thin.
And the wording plays upon heaven and earth is undeniably grand. But if we dig into the linguistic and philosophical roots of the commentary, we see a really crucial distinction here.
Okay, what is it?
It doesn't say, my hand conquers heaven and earth. It doesn't say, my hand dominates. It says, plays upon.
Oh, like an instrument.
Exactly like an instrument.
Yeah.
And that fundamentally changes the physics of the interaction.
How so?
Well, now think about it. A tyrant attempts to bend the laws of reality to their will through brute force. They try to command the tide not to come in.
Right, which never works.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But a master musician doesn't conquer the piano. They don't force the strings to vibrate in ways that are contrary to physics.
They work with it.
Yes. The musician spends years studying the mechanics of the instrument. That's the far-seeing heart we talked about earlier. And then they collaborate with the physical properties of the piano to bring forth music that literally didn't exist before.
So it's about alignment, not domination.
Precisely. It is skillful participation. Think of a master architect building a skyscraper. They aren't defying gravity.
No, they'd build a terrible building if they tried.
Exactly. They are using a profound understanding of gravity and wind shear and material science to construct something magnificent that works with those forces.
That makes total sense.
So when you are playing upon heaven and earth, you are exerting tremendous world-altering ambition, but you are doing so by deeply understanding the nature of the people, the markets, and the environments you are engaging with.
Man, that reframes ambition entirely. It moves it from something aggressive and destructive to something inherently creative.
It does.
And I think for you listening, this is the stage you probably recognize the most when you think about your ultimate goals.
Absolutely. It's the peak.
Right. Think about the peak moments in your career or that one major project where everything just clicked. It's that terrifying, exhilarating state of flow.
Where time just kind of disappears.
Yes. You realize that all those years of obscure study, of grinding away in obscurity, of managing your own internal chaos, have suddenly allowed you to orchestrate a massive undertaking flawlessly.
You're in the zone.
You're leading the team, you're predicting the market shifts before they happen, you are building something undeniable. And in that moment, your ego isn't actually inflated, it's practically dissolved into the work. You are just pure execution. You are playing the instrument of your industry.
Beautifully said. And the commentary is very clear on this. This is a profoundly beautiful and necessary stage of human development.
So the poem isn't anti-ambition.
Not at all. The poem completely validates ambition. It does not take the ascetic view that trying to achieve things in the material world is somehow a sin or a distraction.
Okay, good.
In fact, it frames accomplishment as the natural, healthy maturation of the human spirit. The energy cultivated in stillness must be spent. The engine was built to run.
Right. But, and this is the massive central pivot of our entire deep dive today, the poem doesn't end at the red line.
No, it doesn't.
Just when the speaker has reached the absolute pinnacle of human achievement, just when they have the entire world humming along to their tune and they are playing upon heaven and earth, the ambition just vanishes.
The sudden shift.
Very sudden. The poem abruptly pivots away from the realm of human achievement. And we have to ask a really difficult psychological question here. Why?
Why give it up?
Exactly. Why does the trajectory move from peak ambition and total control towards sudden stillness and surrender?
Well, this brings us to what the text outlines as the paradox of true freedom. The fundamental tension here is sequential.
Sequential, okay.
The commentary poses this brilliant question. Is true spiritual freedom achieved by rejecting the world from the very beginning, or by engaging with it completely, exhausting your potential, and then letting go?
Oh, wow.
The author's notes point out that the central metaphor, the night boat, represents a spirit that has engaged fully with the world, yet remains unburdened by it.
Engaged fully, yet remains unburdened. That implies a strict chronological order.
It does.
You cannot truly let go of the oars if you have never possessed the strength to row in the first place. You can't let go of a worldly bond that you've never actually held in your hands.
Exactly. This is a profound critique of premature transcendence.
What does that mean, premature transcendence?
Basically, if you retreat to a mountaintop at the age of 20 because you read some philosophy and decided the material world is just an illusion, you haven't necessarily found enlightenment.
You might just be hiding.
You might have just found a highly intellectualized form of fear. You might just be terrified of failure, terrified of the marketplace, terrified of the friction of actual human relationships.
So you declare the game stupid because you're afraid you can't win it.
Precisely. But the arc of this poem suggests something much deeper. True serenity requires the absolute exhaustion of ambition.
The exhaustion of ambition. Let's dig into the mechanism of that, because why is it inevitable?
We mean.
Like, if I am playing upon heaven and earth and I'm highly successful, why wouldn't I just want to keep doing that forever? Why doesn't the high just last?
Well, that's because of the psychological reality of the hedonic treadmill and really the biological limits of our neurochemistry.
The brain chemistry gets in the way.
Always. When you are in the accomplishment stage, you are driven by dopamine. Dopamine is the molecule of more.
Right.
It is the chemical that motivates you to seek out new horizons, to build the next tower, to conquer the next market. But dopamine is entirely focused on the future.
It doesn't care about what you already have.
Exactly. It is physically incapable of allowing you to enjoy the present moment. Once you achieve the goal, the dopamine crash is absolutely inevitable. The brain says, great, What's next?
It's the classic midlife crisis mechanism.
Yes, exactly.
You get the corner office, you get the house, you get the fancy title, you look around and you think, wait, is this it? I spent 20 years building this topography, I am playing the instrument perfectly, and yet there's this hollow echo inside.
Yeah. The Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung wrote extensively about this. He divided life into two halves.
Okay.
The first half of life is entirely about ego building. It is about establishing your identity, proving your competence, and separating yourself from your parents and your peers.
That's the vision and accomplishment stage.
Exactly. And it is necessary. But Jung argued that the rules of the first half of life are completely destructive if applied to the second half.
Oh, that's fascinating.
The second half of life, if it is to be meaningful at all, must be about ego dismantling. It's about finding meaning beyond your achievements.
So the transition in the poem isn't a failure.
No, not at all.
The speaker didn't get defeated by the world, they won. They exerted their will, they saw exactly what they were capable of achieving, and through that victory, they realized the absolute limits of worldly success.
They saw the ceiling.
Yeah, they realized that you can't squeeze blood from a stone, and you can't squeeze spiritual peace from a quarterly earnings report or a fiscal monument. You have finally earned the right to put the burden down.
It is the maturation of ambition. Having fundamentally shaped the human world, the speaker's internal topography shifts again. The desire to control the environment is replaced by a profound desire to harmonize with it. And so the speaker turns their gaze away from human constructs, away from the cities and the markets and back toward the natural world, actively seeking a mirror for their changing neurochemistry and their shifting soul.
And what a mirror they find, because this marks the entry into the third stage of the text, which is categorized as the return to nature.
Yes, the sensory shift here is amazing.
It really is. The noise of human striving fades out entirely, and we are hit with these incredibly sharp sensory details. The poem says, "By a pine-framed window I listened to a crane's lone cry. Beside a rocky stream I followed drifting clouds."
Now, the translator's notes explicitly instruct us not to read these lines as mere set dressing.
It's not just a pretty backdrop.
Right. This isn't just a landscape painting. These elements, the pine, the crane, the clouds, they are deeply embedded psychological anchors.
Okay, let's break them down.
They are ancient symbols operating as catalysts for inner transformation. They represent a fundamental rewiring of how the speaker processes reality, what the text calls a quieter way of seeing.
All right, let's start with the pine tree.
Okay.
In almost every classical tradition, the pine is the ultimate symbol of structural integrity and steadfastness. It's an evergreen.
It survives.
Right. It doesn't shed its identity when the harsh winter hits. It simply bears the weight of the snow and survives. So if we track the chronology of our deep dive, the pine represents the enduring character that was forged in the fires of the first two stages.
Oh, I see where you're going.
All that silent observation, all the crushing pressure of playing upon heaven and earth, it didn't destroy the speaker, it crystallized them.
Yes.
The speaker is now sitting by a pine-framed window. Their entire perspective on the universe is literally framed by their own unyielding integrity. They are no longer easily swayed by the opinions of the crowd because their root system is completely secure.
That is a brilliant reading of the framing device. The pine provides the secure, stationary vantage point.
Right.
And from that deeply anchored position, the speaker's auditory processing shifts. They hear a crane's lone cry.
Okay, the crane. What does that signify?
Well, the crane is heavily mythologized in Eastern traditions as a creature of longevity, wisdom, and transcendence. But the really vital psychological clue here is the modifier. It's a lone cry.
Why is the solitude of the cry so important?
Think about the sensory environment of the previous stage. When you are achieving, when you are in the arena, you are constantly bombarded by noise.
So much noise.
The literal noise of the city, the digital noise of endless notifications, the social noise of expectations, criticisms, praises. Your brain is constantly trying to filter a massive amount of chaotic data.
It's overwhelming.
It is. The crane's lone cry represents a dramatic shift in the signal-to-noise ratio. It is a singular, piercing note of clarity that cuts through all the static of the material world. It is the sound of an individual consciousness elevating itself above the chaotic fray of the marketplace.
It's like, you know that exact physical sensation when you step out of a deafening, overcrowded conference hall? Or a chaotic party,
Yeah.
and you just stand alone in an empty parking lot in the freezing night air?
Yes, that shock of quiet.
Exactly. There is that sudden, shocking vacuum of sound, and for the first time all day, you can actually hear the machinery of your own thoughts. That contrast is the crane's cry. It resets your auditory and mental baseline.
That's a perfect modern equivalent.
And then the poem moves from the auditory reset to a visual one. Beside a rocky stream, I follow drifting clouds.
This is where we encounter the most vital neurological and spiritual metaphor of the transition.
The clouds.
Yes, drifting clouds are the ultimate embodiment of impermanence and, more importantly, effortless movement.
Effortless.
Let's look at the physics of a cloud. A cloud possesses no internal engine. It exerts absolutely zero force to propel itself across the sky.
It just floats.
It has no fixed shape, and it has no permanent destination. It simply allows the atmospheric currents, the shifting temperatures, and the winds to carry it. It exists entirely in a state of yielding.
Which is the polar opposite of the human behavior we just spent half the discussion unpacking.
Exactly.
We spent years building the engine block and firing the thrusters. We exerted massive force to shape our destiny.
But here, by choosing to follow the drifting clouds with their eyes, the speaker is actively downloading a new operating system.
They're watching and learning.
Yes,
Yeah?
they are internalizing the lesson of the cloud. If we look at the philosophical corollaries the commentary suggests, this maps perfectly onto transcendentalist thought.
Oh, like American transcendentalism.
Exactly. Specifically, the ecological psychology of writers like Henry David Thoreau and Ralph Waldo Emerson.
Right, because when I hear about someone sitting by a window watching clouds to fix their soul, my mind immediately jumps to Thoreau moving to Walden Pond.
Sure, it's the classic example.
But I want to make sure we don't fall into that trap we mentioned earlier. Thoreau wasn't just on an extended vacation, right?
No, not at all. Transcendentalism argues that human institutions, society, and the frantic pursuit of wealth ultimately corrupts the purity of human perception.
We get tunnel vision.
Emerson wrote extensively in his essay, Nature, about how the modern mind becomes calloused. We stop seeing the world as a living ecosystem and start seeing it only as a collection of resources to be exploited for our ambition.
Everything becomes a tool for success.
Right. And to cure this spiritual blindness, you have to immerse yourself in the natural world, not as a conqueror, but as a student.
You know, it aligns perfectly with modern attention restoration theory and psychology.
I'll explain that.
So when you look at a spreadsheet or navigate heavy traffic, you are using what they call directed attention,
Okay.
which requires immense cognitive effort and quickly burns out your brain's resources. It's exhausting. But when you watch drifting clouds or a fire burning in a fireplace or water flowing in a stream, you engage what's called soft fascination. Soft fascination. I love that.
Yeah. It captures your attention effortlessly, allowing your prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for all that exhausting striving and planning, to finally power down and heal.
That is the exact mechanism happening in this stanza. The speaker is using the pine, the crane, and the clouds to power down their prefrontal cortex.
They're healing.
They are unlearning the metrics of success defined by society and recalibrating their mind to the effortless rhythms of the universe. They are learning that movement does not always require force.
And that profound psychological realization acts as the threshold to the final breathtaking stage of the poem.
The ultimate surrender.
Yes, what the notes call freedom beyond striving. The concluding lines of the poem deliver the absolute emotional and philosophical payload of this entire journey.
Let's hear them.
They read, "When worldly bonds fall away, the spirit knows no burden. I yield to the wind and voyage through the night."
Let's focus purely on the verbs there for a second. I yield.
Contrast that with the second stage. Exactly, compared to my hand plays. Exerting will versus surrendering will. We have arrived at the absolute ultimate letting go.
But I want to really dig into the central metaphor of the entire piece, the night voyage.
It's the title of the poem, after all.
Right. Why does this ultimate state of freedom take place on a boat in the dark? Why a voyage at night?
The setting is everything here. Consider the psychology of sailing during the day.
Okay, you can see everything.
Exactly. A daytime voyage is defined entirely by external visual metrics. You can see the shoreline receding, which tells you where you came from. You can see the competing ships around you, which tells you your relative status.
Who's winning? Who's losing?
Right. And you can see the horizon or the port, which defines your goal. Your entire journey is measured, quantified, and validated by what you can see.
You are totally obsessed with your progress.
Precisely. But a voyage at night strips all of that away. In the pitch black of the open ocean, you are sailing into the great unknown. You lose the visual markers of your past achievements. You cannot see who is ahead of you or behind you, so the anxiety of comparison just vanishes.
That sounds incredibly liberating.
And you cannot see your destination. You are guided only by the invisible feel of the wind against your face, the movement of the water beneath the hull, and your own internal compass.
I mean,
Mm.
that sounds absolutely terrifying if you think about it.
It does.
Honestly, if you haven't done the psychological engineering we talked about in the first 3 stages, yielding to the dark ocean wouldn't be freedom. It would induce a massive panic attack.
Oh, completely.
If you haven't built that inner citadel, if you haven't exhausted your need for control, being cast adrift in the dark without a map is a literal nightmare.
And that is the genius of the sequence.
Yeah.
It is only because the speaker has done the work that they do not panic.
Oh.
Because they know the strength of their own hull, they are perfectly safe in the dark.
Oh.
They are free. The text explicitly says the spirit knows no burden.
Nah.
They have systematically dropped all the cargo.
Tossed it overboard.
Exactly. They threw the need for societal validation overboard. They threw the anxiety of the future overboard. They dumped the heavy, crushing weight of their own ego.
And this brings us to the profound connection the commentary makes to Taoist philosophy, right? Specifically the concept of Wu Wei.
Yes, Wu Wei is often translated as effortless action or non-action. But I need to stress it is deeply misunderstood in the West.
Yeah, we tend to think of it as laziness or passivity.
Exactly.
Because my immediate reaction to effortless action is, well, that's an oxymoron.
Right.
If I don't put effort into my work, my project fails and I get fired. How does yielding to the wind actually function when there are real-world stakes?
The key is understanding that Wu Wei does not mean doing nothing.
Okay.
It means doing exactly what is required with zero internal friction. Taoism posits that the universe operates on a fundamental natural current called the Tao.
The where.
Yes. When we use our ego to try and force outcomes that go against the current of the Tao, we create massive friction. And we experience that friction as stress, burnout, and suffering.
So Wu Wei is?
Wu Wei is the state of recognizing the current and aligning your actions with it so perfectly that your effort becomes invisible.
It's the psychological state of flow we talked about earlier, but applied to the entirety of existence.
Yes, exactly.
You aren't swimming against the riptide to reach a specific point on the beach. You are relaxing your body and letting the current carry you out until it naturally dissipates, and then you just swim parallel to the shore.
That's a great practical example.
You're still taking action, but it is action stripped of frantic, ego-driven resistance.
Right. When the speaker says, "I yield to the wind," they are practicing perfect Wu Wei. They are allowing the incomprehensibly vast intelligence of the universe's natural systems to carry them. They're recognizing that their own individual human will is just a tiny, fragile fragment of a much larger reality.
This philosophy is so massive, so abstract, that sometimes it helps to completely shift the lens to really grasp it.
I agree.
And the commentary attached to our text actually proposed a fascinating, slightly unorthodox thought experiment.
The boat's perspective?
Yes. It challenged us to look at this entire 4-stage arc, from stillness to ambition to nature to surrender, not from the perspective of the human passenger, but from the perspective of the boat itself.
It is a brilliant shift in perspective. It removes the human ego from the equation entirely and allows us to just look at the raw mechanics of existence. If we personify the vessel, the journey becomes incredibly visceral.
Let's walk through it. Imagine for a second, you are the physical boat.
Okay.
Your existence begins in the dry dock. This is the first stage, observation and self-cultivation. You are surrounded by stillness, but it is not a dead stillness. It is the agonizing, slow process of becoming.
It's construction.
Right. There are craftsmen meticulously bending your ribs with steam. They are driving iron nails into your timber. They are sealing your planks with hot, suffocating pitch. You are completely immobile, chained to the earth, but you are being infused with immense structural strength.
You are waiting in the dark for a purpose you don't yet understand.
And then comes the violence of the launch, the stage of vision and accomplishment. The blocks are knocked away, and you are thrust violently into the raging, challenging seas.
The arena.
Yes. You are no longer sitting in the quiet dust of the dry dock. You are slamming through cresting waves. Your newly built timbers are groaning under the immense pressure of the water. You are leaning hard into the gale.
You're loaded down with cargo.
Massive, heavy cargo. The ambitions, the wealth, and the demands of the human world. You are proving your worth. You are playing upon the oceans. You are functioning exactly as you were designed to function, exerting incredible mechanical force against the chaotic water to reach a predetermined port. It is glorious, violent, and purposeful.
But physics dictates that a structure cannot remain at maximum tension forever.
Something's gotta give.
Metal fatigues, wood rots. The boat must find a quiet inlet. This is the return to nature.
Right.
The anchor is dropped in a secluded cove. For the first time in years, the water around the battered hull is perfectly still, reflecting the drifting clouds above rather than smashing over the bow.
A breather.
The boat is no longer fighting the elements, it is resting within them. The frantic creaking of the wood finally settles into a quiet hum. It feels the shade of the pine trees on the shore. It is remembering what it is like to simply possess buoyancy, to just float without having to fight a current.
And then the final stage, the ultimate release.
The night voyage.
The moorings are quietly slipped, the anchor is pulled up, but the massive sails aren't set to catch the gale. The heavy cargo has been unloaded. The boat simply drifts out of the protective inlet, completely uncrewed.
No captain screaming orders.
Exactly. No captain trying to beat the opposing fleet to the next port. It enters the vast, dark expanse of the open ocean at night. It yields completely to whatever deep water current takes it. It isn't broken, and it isn't lost.
It's fulfilled.
It is perfectly fulfilled. It has survived the violence of the storm. It has delivered its cargo, and now it is rewarded with the infinite silent peace of just being a vessel on the water under a canopy of stars.
That narrative completely encapsulates the paradox of the entire text.
It really pulls it all together.
The boat had to endure the agonizing construction in the dry dock, and it had to prove its integrity in the violent storms in order to earn the right to drift peacefully in the end. A boat that refuses to leave the dry dock doesn't achieve transcendence. It just decays into useless timber.
Okay, the imagery is beautiful, the Taoist philosophy is incredibly deep, and the metaphor of the boat is just soaring.
But
But I have to bring us back down to earth on behalf of everyone listening right now.
let's do it.
We need to talk about modern application because the reality is the listener tuning in right now is likely sitting in gridlock traffic on their morning commute.
Honking their horn.
Right.
Oh.
Or they're staring down a glowing screen with an overflowing inbox. Or they are lying awake at 2 a.m. calculating how they're going to cover next month's mortgage payment. How does a person trapped in the machinery of the 21st century actually apply this?
Because you can't just leave.
Exactly. As we established, you can't just physically abandon your life, run away to a cabin with a pine-framed window and watch clouds all day.
That is the most important question we can ask. Because if this text is just ancient escapism, it's completely useless to us.
It's just a fairy tale.
The true value of this deep dive is extracting the psychological blueprint for finding inner peace within the busyness, not outside of it. The challenge is figuring out how to practice yielding to the wind while we still have massive responsibilities and real-world stakes.
Right. How do we turn this epic lifetime arc into an everyday functional meditation?
Exactly.
To me, the massive paradigm shift is realizing that the 4 stages of this poem, contemplation, accomplishment, nature, and surrender, they don't just have to be mapped across an 80-year human lifespan.
They're a fractal pattern.
Yes, they can be experienced over a single decade, over the lifespan of a single creative project, or most practically, in the microcycle of a single day.
A daily microcycle of the night voyage. I think that is an incredibly powerful framework for the modern worker.
Yeah.
Let's walk through what that actually looks like biologically and psychologically.
Okay, think about the structure of an average, healthy day. The morning is the first stage. Observation and self-cultivation.
Setting the baseline.
You wake up, and the critical error most people make is immediately reaching for the phone.
Oh, the absolute worst thing you can do.
They flood their brain with dopamine and cortisol before their feet even hit the floor. They bypass the dry dock completely and throw themselves straight into the storm.
No structural integrity built.
0. But if you follow the poem, you actively manufacture stillness. You drink your coffee in silence. You engage in unstructured thought. You stretch, you meditate, or you literally just look out the window.
You're allowing your prefrontal cortex to come online gently.
Yes. You are nurturing strength for the passing hours. You are building the engine block.
And once the engine is primed, midday becomes the stage of vision and accomplishment. You step into the arena, the office, the studio, the classroom.
You turn it on.
You engage completely. You answer the complex emails. You negotiate the deals. You write the code. You solve the chaotic problems. You are playing upon heaven and earth.
You're doing the work.
You are exerting your will, utilizing that stored potential energy to shape your environment and achieve your goals. This is high-friction, high-reward work, and it is entirely necessary.
But here is where modern society fails completely. We forget to pivot.
We never turn it off.
Never. We try to stay in that midday stage forever. But if you follow the blueprint as evening approaches, you initiate the return to nature. You have to actively, intentionally step away from the arena,
Close the laptop.
close the laptop, put the phone in another room. You change your physical environment, you go for a walk, you cook a meal from scratch, you play with your dog, or you literally just watch the sky change color.
Soft fascination again.
Right. You are actively seeking out the cognitive equivalent of the cranes and clouds, activities that require soft fascination rather than directed attention. You deliberately let the adrenaline and dopamine of accomplishment metabolize and fade out of your bloodstream. You transition to a quieter way of seeing.
Which perfectly sets up the final phase.
Mm,
Night. The freedom beyond striving.
the hardest part.
This is the hardest part for the modern mind. As you prepare for sleep, you must practice the psychological surrender of yielding to the wind. You have to let the worldly bonds of that specific day fall away.
You have to detach.
You have to accept a radical truth.
Mm,
Whatever you achieve today is written in ink, and whatever you fail to achieve cannot be solved at 11:30 p.m.
right. It's done.
It's done.
Yeah.
You yield to the darkness. You deliberately unburden your spirit from the anxieties of tomorrow's to-do list. You drop the oars and allow yourself to drift into sleep, trusting the autonomic, restorative processes of your mind and body to carry you.
If you approach your 24-hour cycle like that, suddenly the busyness of life isn't this overwhelming, soul-crushing flood that you are drowning in.
No, it's manageable.
It is just one specific time-box stage of a natural biological and psychological cycle. What actually causes burnout, what generates that perpetual anxiety and the feeling of information overload, is when we try to force the entire day to be stage 2.
We want it to be midday at midnight.
Exactly. We try to play upon heaven and earth while we are eating dinner with our family. We try to exert our will and solve problems while we are lying in bed trying to sleep. We are revving the engine while slamming on the brakes, and we wonder why the machine is tearing itself apart.
It is profound cognitive dissonance. And what's fascinating is that the commentary offers one final, brilliant philosophical lens to help remedy that modern exhaustion.
What's that?
It asks us to look at this integration of peace and busyness through the perspective of Zen or Chan in the Chinese tradition.
Okay.
Zen Buddhism offers a remarkably practical approach to this exact problem. It teaches that enlightenment is not found by retreating to a monastery to avoid daily chores, but by becoming radically, completely present within those mundane chores.
Finding the magic in the mundane.
There is a famous Zen proverb: before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water.
I've always been struck by that proverb, but I want to make sure I understand the actual mechanics of it in relation to our poem. If the external action doesn't change, like, you are still physically chopping the wood, what exactly is shifting internally?
It is the shift in cognitive load and attachment. It bridges the gap between the frantic ambition of stage 2 and the yielding of stage 4.
How does that look today?
In our modern context, chopping wood and carrying water is clearing the email inbox, paying the bills, doing the laundry, sitting in traffic.
The grind.
The grind. When we perform these tasks with a mind that is constantly striving, when we are chopping wood but our brain is agonizing over a meeting we have tomorrow, or we are sitting in traffic furiously angry that we aren't moving faster, we are trapped in the crushing burden of ambition. We are creating massive internal friction against reality.
We're fighting the current of the Tao.
Exactly. But if we bring the far-seeing heart of the first stanza and the yielding of the final stanza into those mundane tasks, the psychological experience transforms completely.
So what does that look like?
We chop the wood, but we focus entirely on the weight of the axe, the grain of the wood, the sound of the split. We engage in the work fully, but without agonizing over the future.
Yeah.
We act, but we completely detach our ego from the results of the action.
Wow.
We're doing the heavy lifting of the human world, but internally, we have already slipped our moorings. We are already yielding to the wind.
That is a staggering perspective shift. It means you can be in the middle of a chaotic boardroom or a screaming household, and internally, you are on the night voyage.
Yes, you've brought the stillness into the storm.
So, as we bring this all together, what does this ultimately mean for you, the person listening right now?
The big takeaway.
The big takeaway, it means that true productivity, the kind of productivity that actually builds a deeply meaningful life rather than just a frantic, busy one, is not about endless friction-filled striving.
No, it's not.
It is about radical self-awareness. It is the ability to diagnose exactly which stage of the voyage you are currently in. Are you in a season of life or a time of day where you need to be in the dry dock, nurturing strength and stillness? Or are you in the arena, required to play upon heaven and earth with everything you have?
And more importantly, it is about giving yourself the profound grace and permission to transition to the next stage when the time is right.
You can't stay in one stage forever.
You can't. If you are experiencing bone-deep exhaustion right now, it might not be because you are working too hard. It might be because the wind is already blowing in your favor, the current is ready to take you, and you are stubbornly, fearfully refusing to let go of the oars.
The poem brilliantly validates our ambition, but it issues this gentle, beautiful warning against making our ambition our permanent residence.
It's a house, not a home.
Right. It reminds us that accomplishment is a waypoint on the map. It is not the destination. The ultimate destination is a state of being where the desperate psychological need for a destination vanishes entirely.
That is the architecture of a profound life. We move from contemplation building the inner citadel, to accomplishment shaping the external world, to nature recalibrating our soul to the rhythms of the universe, and finally, to freedom, the release of all heavy cargo and the joyful yielding of our limited will to the infinite flow of life.
We want to leave you with a final, lingering thought to mull over as you step back into your day, something to test the structural integrity of your own hull.
A parting thought.
We almost always define a voyage as a journey to a specific place. You voyage to a new job, to a financial milestone, to a specific relationship status. It's all about arriving.
Always the destination.
But in the night voyage, as we've discovered today, the ultimate freedom only arrives when the destination disappears entirely, when the boat just drifts. So looking at the complex, chaotic topography of your own life right now, what is one specific worldly bond? Perhaps a rigid goal you've obsessed over, a desperate need for a specific outcome, or a suffocating need for control over a situation you can't actually change, that if you simply gave yourself permission to let it fall away tonight, would allow your spirit to finally drop the oars and drift freely in the dark.
It is a profound diagnostic question, and it is one well worth carrying with you into the stillness.
Thank you for taking this deep dive with us. Safe travels on your own voyage.